Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from the central part of Texas, USA. And let me turn off that background sound so we don't have to listen to myself echoing. All right. Hey, who was that? Why is that not showing up on my chat? Oh, my chat is not working right here. Hold on a second. Pop out my chat. There we go. I see Veya 1973 from Twitch. Good morning, or good evening, good afternoon. Get set up here. Always seems like I've got to warm up to the live stream, and then once I get going, things start happening. But got to get myself warmed up here a little bit. See if we can get some more viewers on this morning before we get started into the content, which if you've been on my live streams before, you know my content is some stuff and then some other stuff sprinkled in, and then maybe some other stuff sprinkled in with that. So I try to keep it light, not formal, just talk about whatever y'all want to talk about, and just try to be helpful. Hello from Uruguay. Hello. UK. All right, so it's afternoon in the UK. I guess it's like 4-ish, maybe. I have no idea what time it is in Uruguay or Uruguay, however that's said. I should not try to say anything with an accent. I just end up butchering it, so I won't do that. A lot of activity in the house this morning. Oh, let me turn on my mouse thing in case I need that for something. My mouse highlighter. Now I have a yellow dot. So let's as y'all get on, if you have any questions, let's throw those questions in the chat. That way we can kind of talk about that a little bit before we get started into some of the content. Let's see, I'm looking for Windows. Also, the delay is, I noticed this morning, is really long. It's about a 30-second delay from the time I say something here until it shows up on the live stream, for whatever that's worth. What am I looking for here? I forgot what I was going to do. Oh, I don't know. Who knows what I'm going to do? I'll do whatever I need to do. Having big issues with Home Assistant. All right, so this is the place to ask questions if you're having big issues with Home Assistant. I will do my best to answer them. So throw them in the chat, and we'll see what we can do. Hello from Canada, Marcinet from Canada, and L Strong from Bridgewater, Massachusetts. Every time I hear the word Massachusetts, well, okay, there's two things now. Maybe one is politically correct. Well, anyway, I watch This Old House. I've been watching it for years and years. And when I think of the New England area, all I think about is the houses and This Old House. You know, it's interesting that This Old House, if you haven't seen that show, it's a home improvement house, and it started, I think it's the original home improvement show it was on PBS, and they do home improvement, they do renovations, they do a lot of stuff, and they started adding a section. I don't know if it's on here or not, but they started adding a section about the smart home stuff, and it's interesting to see what the take on smart home is versus what we do in this Home Assistant realm. And I don't see anything specifically on here, but I've been watching this show for years and years and years, and a lot of the stuff they do on those really old houses are up in the New England area, and I think those are really fun shows to watch. So, if you're bored one day, I think they've now put maybe it's 1,500 episodes. It's over 1,000 episodes. I know it's a bunch. And they've put all of these shows out now where you can actually watch them on one of the streaming providers, and I forget which one, but you can watch the entire series from the beginning, back in the Bob Vila days, all the way up to today, where they have, the current hosts and stuff. All right, so it says here, I'm trying to install Home Assistant OS on my Raspberry 3 B+, but had preparing Home Assistant could take up to 20 minutes for the. Okay, so. Van, I've heard that before, and we're talking about this right here for those that are following along. I know I have my chat thing over in the top right, but you can't really read that. Well, I guess you can. But I like to point it out. And I don't have the fancy thing where I can put up the chat on the bottom because I'm using OBS and I haven't figured out how to get YouTube chats into OBS like some of the streaming things can do. Anyway, I'm trying to install Home Assistant on my Raspberry Pi 3B Plus and it sits on the Preparing Home Assistant. What version of Home Assistant did you download? And the reason I asked that is there was a problem. I know somebody else had the same issue. There was a problem with a version of the Home Assistant. I don't know if it wasn't publicly made known, or I didn't see it, but it was a problem with one of the downloads or one of the versions. And I installed it on my Raspberry Pi 4, and my Raspberry Pi 4 wouldn't boot up. And I had to go back to the snapshot and start over. When I skipped over that version, it was fine after that. So let me look here. What we have here for the latest thing. So obviously you have different versions. You're on the 3, you said. Is it B plus? I don't remember if that's 64-bit or 32-bit. But anyway, you can go here. And you can install it directly into the Balena etcher from you can do it from a flash from a URL is what it's saying. You can get this URL and pull it right in. That's really cool because that's new. That used to download it and then flash it, but now you can flash it right from the URL. And I'm trying to find, it says the image here, 6.5.12. I think it was 4 something that I was having the issue with. So let's see, I can't read all of that. 6.5.12. So you're on the latest one. So anybody watching today that had the issue, oh, wrong link. Okay, I'll wait on that then. Let me go. So we have from DC, good morning, from North Texas, where I'm hoping everyone has all of the issues from snowpocalypse resolved by now. There may be still people cleaning up from, busted pipes and all that. That was a fiasco. Whew. Has anyone figured out local, not cloud-based voice control option use? It's interesting that you asked this question here because I want to do that. I actually have it on my to-do list. I bought parts to do that. And the issue with using a home-based or voice control option is you have to have, the answer is yes, you can do this, but you have to have something to drive the audio. And if you have an amp, like a whole house system, you can certainly do that easily. It seems like you use like an ESP board and you do some stuff with that and there's a person out there who's created some firmware to make that work. I haven't figured it out, or I haven't done it yet. But in terms of doing this voice control option, you can, but you have to have on the ESP board and the little amplifier that you need to power, or the little audio board you need to drive it, you need some sort of amplifier typically to make it hearable. And I've heard people taking apart old Nest, smart speakers and stuff and using the innards of a smart speaker and doing that. Here's the issue. If I were to go local voice, and you're saying voice control option. Sorry, I just totally read that wrong. Control option, I don't know. Speaking TTS option, yes. But I'm sure this is out there. That would be an interesting thing to do. You just have to get audio back into Home Assistant. I haven't played with that. So you can speak. There's a way to do that, making TTS work locally without a cloud. As far as the voice control option, that would be interesting if somebody has any comments on that. After spending 5 minutes talking about it, I read it wrong, and so I was wrong. All right, so this is the right link. 3.5.12. All right, so you're talking about... So you're using the 32-bit version of that. Let me come back to that in a little bit because I've heard that, and I hope someone else can talk about that a little bit as well. Someone wants to know about my motion sensitive icon. I guess that one. Good morning, Nick. And how did I set up the motion stuff? Talk about that. Movie speech recognizer and speech synthesizer shield compatible with Arduino. Let's just take and see what Google tells us about that.
The garage door is closed.
So this is an easy to use speech recognizer and voice synthesizer. You can program up to 150 full sentence voice commands with a speech recognizer. No internet or PC connection is required. So you talk to the board. I guess you go from here to something else. I guess you'd have to figure that out, how to get from point A to point B. Let's just see let's just take this off and say Home Assistant. Okay, so I've looked at Almond or heard about Almond. It's an open, privacy preserving virtual assistant, open source. Now, how do you get it from point A to point B? Okay, here we go. Oh, Almond only works with text input, generates text as output. It doesn't handle speech to text, so those are out of scope. However, not out of scope for Home Assistant. So there is a text-to-speech integration with different backends. Starting in 102, we have almost all the pieces. So you would have a project called Ada. Ada integrates hot word detection and will route all data to the various integrations to provide a full voice assistant experience. So there is a video on that. So anyway, if you look at this page here, and this was back in 2019, so I'm guessing it's probably come a long way since then. Yes, the answer is yes, you can do it. You just have to you have to just build it. That might be something else that's an interesting thing to do as well. Hey, Tony, thanks for dropping by 20 minutes, but we'll try to make it worth your while. All right, so what else do we have here? All right, so somebody asked about this motion well, I have a couple of things here going on, and you're talking about motion here versus this is the fridge. Now, my fridge temperature is hot because we're loading groceries into the refrigerator right now, so the door's probably open, and so it's reading hot. This, if you saw my ESP32 video, which I just released this week, part 2 is going to be using the Xiaomi thermometer, which is the thermometer is in the refrigerator, and it's a little Bluetooth low energy device. It's stuck on the inside wall of the refrigerator, and the ESP32 board is hanging behind the fridge, plugged into the wall with a little like USB power supply. And so this is updating and reporting that the temperature thing is hot. The point here is this button and the motion sensing buttons are all built off of the same configuration. So what I'm going to do, hopefully, is get this over here. I am going to show you how I do. Oh, you know what? I'll show you that in the editor here. I use a custom button card, and I've built this dashboard in the UI editor. So I'm going to edit it this way. So edit dashboard. And I'm going to come over here to this particular card stack. And this is a stack of cards. I have a bunch of things in here using grid cards. I have a whole video on grid cards. If you're interested in how I built this dashboard, a similar version of this dashboard is completely built out on a video that I did. So if you're interested in how that works, check that video out later. But on here, I have to find, let's see, this is 1, 2, so the second batch of cards. And then I have 5 cards across here. And each one of these is a custom button card. So if you want to use the custom button card, can you all even see that? If you want to use a custom button card, you have to install it through HACS. And HACS is Home Assistant Community Store. There's a whole installer on installing that first. And once you have that installed, you can go out to GitHub and pull all these additional items out. And doing that allows you to use this custom button card. I just look at a binary sensor, which happens to be the motion sensor. So you can use this with anything. The custom button card is very configurable. I I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's probably one of the most configurable buttons or elements that you have within Home Assistant for a UI perspective. And so I just picked the motion sensor icon. Mike Fisher, yay! The named it kitchen, color type is card, and then what I have here is if the value goes from anything to on, it just changes to red and it sends an alert or changes the icon to alert. Now that's one way I do that, and that's these buttons. All these buttons here are the same way, and I do the same thing here. I have Blue Iris as my camera in VR, and under Blue Iris, if I look at the third, the third thing down here, the third row down, it's exactly the same thing. I have a BI Garage Cam sensor, which is brought in from a Blue Iris integration. And under I just set a camera icon. And if there's motion detected now what Blue Iris does is the camera itself is not detecting motion. The camera is just sending video to Blue Iris, which runs on a PC in the house. And that has tons and tons and tons of configuration options for different zones, alert types, all stuff. I get an MQTT, and I say that wrong. This feed is actually MQT. This sensor is built off an MQTT feed from Blue Iris into Home Assistant. And anyway, when this trips, all it does is set the value to on, or when it's on, it sets the color to red and sends an alert. So what you're seeing here with the kitchen alert, the same thing happens with any motion detection on my cameras. The other thing, I'm using what's called Sentry AI with my Blue Iris. And I know I'm getting way off topic here, but I think it's interesting to talk about some of this stuff. But I'm using Sentry AI, and I think what happens on that is I only get confirmed alerts, which means there's a human, animal, or a car, if I choose to use the car alerts. It will only alert if it sees one of those things here. So I don't get alerts all day long when there's no motion or a non-human or non-whatever alert. I'm still trying that out to see if that's true or not. It may not be true. I may get an alert for everything. And when that becomes really readily apparent is if I have shadows going across like my driveway, it will alert on the shadows, but the AI doesn't send me an alert on my phone because the AI knows it's not a person. That's how the AI saves tons of alerts and prevents false alerts from coming to my phone and my applications. I don't know if the MQTT feed only picks up AI sent alerts or if it sends all my alerts. We'll see. Okay, so that's those two things that you asked about. And who was that asked about that? Who asked me that? CJ. All right, so those are the two things there. Now, one other thing, one of the billion other things you can do is if I look at this, like the fridge sensor you saw flashing. Oops. If I edit that one, and I have something in here that doesn't allow me to use the UI editor, so I have to go find this thing. So somewhere down here is my fridge stuff. So scroll, scroll, scroll. That's the front entry stuff. So we got to get past all the light switches. Hey, Arjan from the Netherlands. Welcome. We were just talking about the flashy thingies on my dashboard real quick before we jump into a little bit of automation. Switch. These are some more switches. Good golly. Okay, so now I've missed it. Oh, no, I haven't. Keep going, keep going. So one of the problems with when I can't use the visual editor is I have to find these things way down in the code. I'm used to using just the code editor, and I don't know where this stuff is when I do a UI-based code edit. I'm sure it's in my file list somewhere. I just haven't ever gone to find it, where it would be easier for me to edit in something like Visual Studio Code than trying to find it through all this. Okay, so this is actually the refrigerator temperature. Obviously the title's fridge, you can see that here. Show unit's true. I want to show this unit 49.3. I want to show the state, so I don't know, the state doesn't really show anything. Okay, so this is where I get into the business of this. So the card, you can set opacity. So this is only 70% opaque. If I set it to 100%, you can see in real time. See, it gets just a little bit brighter. That may not be visible on the camera. Ooh, 1,000, wow. Let's say I set it to 20 and it'll probably just appear pretty, yeah, see? So you you can really change the way this looks. I go 70 because it just kind of keeps it muted a little bit, but doesn't allow it to, it allows me to read it, but it's a little bit muted, so it's not just in my face. The height I set because I want it to match the rest of this row. The name, of course, the font size, I keep it at 12 pixels. One of the things you notice too is this is the stock card, or the stock button card in Home Assistant, and this is the custom button card. I can't read these titles because of the way the button card works, so I will eventually replace these with custom just so I can format the text size, the units, and where everything is, so it's easier to see when it's compressed like this. These both are rain values, but I don't remember which one's which. One's rain for the day and one is rain rate, but looking at this one I have no idea which is which. So I need to replace these with custom. Okay, so to make it flash, number one, the first thing is I want to know anytime the temperature is above or equal to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So what I do here is I set the value 50. The operator is greater than or equal to, and if this happens, then the styles get set, this style list. So background color would turn red, the opacity then becomes 100%, the height stays the same, and then I want it to blink for 2 seconds, slowly, ease, infinite. So it will continue to blink the entire time that temperature is above 50 degrees or equal to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. I also set the icon color to white, the name, the color of the name, the text is white as well. And the same thing occurs with the garage freezer. If it's greater than or equal to 10 degrees Fahrenheit, I want it to flash as well. And that's the difference between the card here, the motion, which stays on for the entire time. See, now I have motion in the garage, and I also have a garage motion picked up on the camera. So let me get out of that. So those two things there are on. I leave those on all the time because there's so much motion around the house. I don't want it just flashing all the time. Something that I really want to grab my attention, I flash. If the temperature is above on either one of these things, then I want it to flash and let me know, hey, you need to do something with that. So that is how I do, CJ, the flashing motion. And if you want to install HACS, watch my video on that. It's on the Back to the Basics series. Because then you can go into HACS and you can pull out, I don't even know how many things there are here. Thousands of integrations, maybe hundreds, thousands. But I use, these are integrations, but front end would be where the card would be. And so my custom button card is somewhere in here. This is the button card that I use for everything. So you need to install HACS first, get that up and running. Make sure you watch the video on that because it's okay, simple wise or technical wise, but you have a couple steps you need to make sure you do. Once it's installed, I also have on my dashboard, I have a card that tells me when there's any updates available. So I always watch this. This is provided by HACS. It's a little sensor, and it tells me how many updates because you want to make sure you're always updating the stuff in HACS. One of the things that happened when we went to the new numbering scheme, or the version right before that, I think, is HACS updated, and it required an update before you do the core Home Assistant update. And if you didn't do that, things broke, and I had a problem. So I want to make sure I'm always notified when there's an update available for that. All right, there we go with that. So what I want to do now is, if we have questions, throw those questions at me. As we continue here, I want to talk about automations. And I'm just going to kind of wing this a little bit. On my Home Assistant page, I'm going to have to shrink it back down. I do most of my automations, I said page, on my Home Assistant setup, I do most of my automations with Node-RED. I did this back in the day when I built everything because Node-RED to me visually, and this is just dependent on how you all think. I'm just reading a question here from JB. I don't know if this is JB. Are you on the live stream? He's asking in the live stream questions, or whoever that is. Saw the video re Z-Wave JS to MQTT. Can someone explain better where I can find the polling setting? If you're on the live stream, JV, that is super simple. I know, like I said, I'm going to jump around a little bit. But if we go to the supervisor and we look at actually, it's right here. Why did I do that? I have it on the side panel. If we go into Z-Wave JS MQTT and you click on settings and you click on general, this is where you can do the polling. You can do a new value and you can set it to poll, and then you can set the poll interval seconds. I'm only doing this with one device and it's killing my battery, or one set of devices and it's killing the batteries. How do I get out of this? Cancel. That's for my door locks. My quick-set 910 door locks do not update if you manually turn the bolt. So I have to poll, and I do it every 5 minutes now just to get a status of the bolt if somebody unlocks it manually, because I want to take a quick glance at my dashboard to make sure everything is either locked or unlocked or whatever. I believe if you do change the status of the bolt by Z-Wave, it updates that. But I had to poll, and I was doing it every 60 seconds, and that was really killing the battery. Now I do every 300 seconds, every 5 minutes. I believe there's a work in progress to be able to allow the QuickSet 910 to update correctly whenever the bolt is turned, but I haven't seen that yet. So anyway, that's where you get the polling. You set the polling here. I would use it very sparingly, especially with battery operated devices. Number one, polling does take a little bit of hit to your network. It causes some congestion or some extra traffic. So if you have a very big network, you're going to have a lot of traffic issues, or it's going to slow things down. The second thing, of course, is, like I said, the battery. You don't want to run the battery down by pulling it more often than you have to. Okay, back to Node-RED. What was I saying? I was saying I did all of my integrations here, or all of my automations via Node-RED, because I'm a visual person and I can see this stuff, and for me it's easier. But that was before Home Assistant had a lot of built-in automation stuff. The UI wasn't as robust. Now the UI has come a long way. So if I click on, can I get here from here? Yes. So if I hit C on my keyboard and I navigate to automations, what I want to try to do today is take a couple of my Node-RED automations, some of the more advanced ones, and I want to see if I can duplicate them here easily. One of the ones that I think about first off is something like this. So I have all of my outdoor lights turning on, and we'll just look here, about 20 minutes before sunset local time. Let me take a quick drink here. Okay, cool. So I want to try to take this, and I don't need to do all the lights, but I want to go into Home Assistant, and I want to see if I can do this. And I think I probably can. And I just want to see what the feature parity is between these two methods. So I'm going to add an automation, and I'm going to start with an empty automation. And I'm going to call this turn on lights at sunset. It's going to be a single trigger. And the device, this is where I have to kind of start thinking. Triggers are what starts the processing. So it would be sun, would be the trigger. So I would say sunset. My offset is optional. And this is where I'd have to do a little bit of research. I don't know what the offset is here. Is that the format? Is it minutes or 20, or what is it default to? So I wonder, let's do a little, and here's the other thing. I don't know everything, obviously. Well, there's two things I want to point out. The first one is, obviously I don't know everything. I do a lot of research in understanding how things work. By nature, I can think in a technical manner, and I think a lot of us that are on this this stream today and then play around with this probably have a little bit of a technical mindset. but I also have to figure things out. So what I'm doing here is showing you kind of the process. The second thing is there are probably 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 ways to do the same thing. And so my way, the way I do it, may not be the way that you do it because you think differently and you think, okay, I want to do it a different way. So what I demonstrate today is by no means the only way to accomplish something. And again, if you've been in the technical realm at all in the last forever, you know that there are lots of opinions on the best way and the whatever. So what I do today is the way I think and the way I feel like I want to do it. It may not be the way you want to do it, but it's basically concepts is what we're talking about. Okay, with that in mind, I need to know what the offset means. So the way I would do that is go to Home Assistant Automations, and there's probably some documentation somewhere that tells me what the learn about automation basics. So in fact, this is turn the lights on in the living room. So it looks like in this example, he's actually using the sun as a thing. Let me go find it. Or not. So the trigger. So if that's what we're at, right? We're looking at triggers. So trigger. So we have to understand trigger. So I'm going to click on trigger and see what it tells me here. Trigger variables. Script level variables. Trigger variables will be available in trigger templates with the difference that only limited templates can be used to pass a value to the trigger variable. So what I want to know is what are the different triggers? And where is that going to be? Hello from hello Chris, hello Zappy, and hello Ove from Sweden. What we're doing right now, what we're looking at here is I'm taking my node red sunset to sunrise on off thing and turning that into an automation. Now it'll probably actually be 2 automations. It'll be the on automation and the off automation. But what I'm looking for now is I'm looking for what offset means when you're selecting this stuff here. And what I have to understand is when I say I want it to be 20 minutes prior to sunset, do I do a 20M there? Or do I do, just 20? Does it default? Do I do it by seconds? And so what I'm looking for now is the process that I go through to try to figure that out. And so far, I don't see, let me see if there's anything here. And if I don't find the answer right away, what I will end up doing is going more specific in my query, my Google foo. And I don't see that I see what it would be here. Oh, a list of built-in events can be found here. Okay. Now, event call service, automation reloaded scene platform discovered. That's not what it is. So let me do a different search. I'm going to search for, and someone's probably screaming at me saying, "Oh, it's right in front of your face. You can't see that." I'm going to search for Home Assistant sun offset and see what we get with doing that using the sun. Okay, so this is probably most likely in here. This is an automation YAML version. So this is what the offset would be. And it looks like hours, minutes, seconds. So my offset probably would end up to be something like this. Offset is 0 hours, 20 minutes, 0 seconds. Okay, so that's what we're going to do there. I'm not going to do any conditions because in my node red, I don't have any conditions here. It's just straight on off. So we'll go with that. All right, so MadVet says trigger fires when the sun is setting and rising. Optional time offset can be given to have it fire a set time before or after the sun, e.g. 45 minutes before sunset. Yeah, and that's what I was trying to figure out what the format was. I think this is going to be the format. We're going to try that anyway and see what happens. I mean, it's not going to run, obviously, because it's the middle of the day here, but just kind of showing what it looks like. And then conditions, nothing. Actions, this is where I want to do some stuff. And this depends on your setup. But I want to do a call service. I'm going to say switch, turn on. And this is where they've added some cool stuff to the automations and other things. And this switch turn on is allowing me to pick, I can pick an area. Like if I had a whole house or something, I could pick the entire area, or I can just pick entities. I have not had success yet, and I don't know why, in picking multiple entities under an automation and making it work, but it might. So if I say, I want to turn on, my favorite, y'all know now, there's always going to be the playroom. It will always be one of my things. And we'll do kitchen island. So why it says current value, I don't know. Should just say kitchen island. And let's do front hall. Front hall. Okay, there we go. So this is really a simple automation. And if we look at Node-RED, we want to turn the lights on again, 20 minutes before sunset and 20 minutes after sunrise. We're going to turn off the outside lights so they stay on all night long. And that's what we're duplicating this same thing we have in Node-RED over to this automation. So going through it again, turn on lights at sunset, and then event would be at sunset minus 20 minutes. So 20 minutes before sunset, no conditions. You could add a condition, but we're not going to do that on this one. And then for the service type, we are going to turn on, we're going to use switch turn on. Now, if you had a mixture of switches, like all these are switches for me. Some of you probably have lights, so your domain would be different here. You would actually be able to add an item, another thing here called call service, and whatever the term is, I don't have actually lights. No, I do. You do light turn on. And so you would use these for the switches, the things that are considered switches, and then you would use these things for the lights. And you could really get fancy with the light part of it. If you have RGB lights, you could change all those. There's just tons of things. I don't have any of these lights, so I don't need this. So I will just delete this part. Yep. And now if I save this, I should have an automation. If I go back to automations, that says turn on lights at sunset, and it would tell me when it was last run. So Zappy says to use the YAML, I did not try the GUI yet for automation. You can do that, but what I'm trying to do today, Zappy, is since this is all UI based as well, and I've moved a lot to the UI on Home Assistant native. I wanted to see how I could duplicate some of my Node-RED stuff here into Home Assistant using the UI. You can look at this in the YAML version now. If I click on Edit now and I look at YAML, I can edit this whole thing in the YAML mode. So alias, description, trigger, and then here's the offset, and this looks like the offset over here in the example. So excuse me, it's probably going to be fine, right? No conditions. And then the action would be to turn on all of these entities. Now what I'm going to do is let's look at my dashboard here and see what's on. So the only light that's on in the house is the study light right now. If I run this automation, let's see if I can make it where you can see both these at the same time. Yeah, that's going to be messy. We'll come back. So if I run the actions now, all those lights should come on. And in fact, I'll just come back over to the automations page and do it here. You can click on run actions for any of your automations to test them out. So turn on lights at sunset, run actions. Last triggered at 11:15 a.m. Central. And now we have our island, our playroom, and our front hall lights. So the automation works in terms of doing the actual actions. The trigger is different. I didn't test the trigger. What I tested was the actions that occur within the automation. So there you go with an easy one. That's an easy one. One of the things that pushed me to Node Red initially was something that requires a loop timer. And I will be honest, I don't know how to build that yet. Here, we're going to see how this might work. But let me find one that requires a loop timer. And one of the big ones I use is the fridge door open. This one looks complicated here, but let me explain what it's doing. Hey, hello from the Four Corners. You talking about Four Corners as in northern New Mexico Four Corners about? All right, so fridge door open. So I have a fridge door. I have one of those standard Z-Wave battery powered door sensors. I have one of those French door refrigerators where one half closes flat and the other half closes and has that little flap that has to push in. It's also black, so you can't really see when the door is partially open. And we've been burned a few times. We've gone somewhere and we've come back and the door's been open for multiple hours. And right above, in the very top of the refrigerator, are two light bulbs, and those things get hot. They did. I replaced them with LEDs a couple of months ago, and oh man, they're beautiful now. But they got hot, and they would just warm up the inside of the refrigerator because they were left on. So I implemented this whole scenario where I wanted to know if the temperature, or if the door was left open. I can use that in conjunction with the temperature as well. This is a quicker notice. I don't want the temperature to get hot and tell me that it's hot before I get notified the door's open. So the sensor's there, and whenever the fridge door is open, it starts a 2-minute timer. Whenever the fridge door is closed, it stops that timer, this timer. If this timer reaches 2 minutes, it fires off down this path, and it checks again the fridge door status. I don't know why I do that. I had a reason for that. If state is off, I don't know why I did that. Well, anyway, it goes down here and checks the status. If it's still open, which means, so look, I look at it here. If it's off, it's true. If it's on, it's false, meaning it's still open. Closed is off and open is on. So you got to consider that. So if it's still on, which means it's open, the state of this particular thing is false. I could have easily gone the other direction and made it, if it's on, I don't know why I was thinking backwards. If it's on, it would be true and it would come out the top one. Anyway, the point is, it comes through here and notifies me via pushover, and it notifies all of my smart speakers. It announces that the door has been left open. And also my Nest, all my smart speakers. And you can see that it was last left open, and I got called on the 19th at 7:59 p.m. And it's awesome because we'll be walking around and my little smart speaker in the kitchen will say, hey, the door's open, and I'll just run over and shut it. It's been a fantastic thing. It's one of my most useful little hacks, right? So what I want to do is figure out how can we take something like this and build an automation on this. And I'm going to try it. Again, I don't know everything, so this may or may not be successful. And what gets me is this part right here. How do I set a 2-minute timer? And not having tried this, I am going to see if I oh, there's a link here, by the way. So I'm coming back to the chat real quick. Here is, well, that's the wrong window. So Vayan sent me a link in chat, and this is the link. When we're talking about offsets a minute ago, this is how to properly use an offset. I want to have my coffee started before I wake up. Coffee. If you're a coffee drinker, you know what's going on right now. Even if I've had coffee, I still want coffee. I love coffee. Okay, well, so anyway, it goes through and talks about this. And this is obviously, we did do that format, so that should be fine. That reminds me, I need to turn off this thing. You can turn on and off your automations just by flipping the switch. And the reason why is that it's running in Node Red. I don't need Node Red to fire and this automation to fire. It probably won't do anything bad, but I don't need it I don't need Z-Wave stuff fighting with each other. Okay, so let's see what we can do here. We're going to create a new automation, and we're just going to do the simple stuff first. So it's an empty automation. So fridge door open, we'll just call it what we called in Node-RED. So this is where the trigger is going to start, and we will start with state. Entity is going to be binary sensor, fridge door sensor. And the attribute, I don't need to set an attribute. So when it goes from off to on, so off again is closed, on is open. That's my trigger. And I want to add a condition, I believe. Actually, let's look here first. And this is where y'all can help me. So when you go from here, we're checking the state right now. That's the very first node. Now we haven't done this part. Now we need to start a timer. And obviously the timer is because I don't need to be notified every time the door's open and closed. That would make me crazy. Just if it's left open for 2 minutes. I mean, I could set that to 5 minutes if I really wanted to. Or any time. It's arbitrary. So how do we get from... we don't want to do anything yet because actions are where we're going to announce it. So I need a condition. I'm going to look in the conditions and see what we can do. Conditions are optional and prevent the automation from running unless all conditions are satisfied. Let's look at time. And we're going to do, yeah, maybe that's not right. Value of a date time helper. Okay, so right, after 2 minutes? I'm totally guessing here. Totally guessing. And I don't need every day of the week. I don't know what that's doing there. No matching entities found. Do I not have a... Oh, you know what this is? It says a value of a date time helper. I don't have a date time helper. That would be under the helpers section here. Okay, so maybe time is not it. So let me look through and see what else we have. I mean, I'm thinking it has to be time. So let's go look at date time helpers and see if there's a helper that we can set. And I hit C on my keyboard on some of the screens here, and it takes me right to these. You can type C and start typing the name of a place you want to go to, a command. You can navigate to entities by hitting E. You can navigate to commands by hitting C and then start typing. So I want to go to, what's it called? Helpers. Okay, so look, I guess I did this at some point. So I already have a helper called timer fridge door open. Why it doesn't show up in that list, I don't know. So let me edit this and see what it is. Oh, wait. What? Oh, this is a... Yes, it actually pulled this up from YAML. I have this in my configuration from a long time ago. I forgot about that. But I'm going to add a new helper. And it's going to be a counter or a timer. Let's call timer. 2-minute timer. And the duration is going to be, I'm going to assume it's the same format, 0200, created. So now I have somewhere in my helper, a 2-minute timer. Now if I go back over here, hopefully it picks it up, or I have to refresh the screen. Let me just choose off of this and go back to a time, and we're going to do a value of a date time helper. Okay, let me refresh because I don't think this worked. Yeah. So here's a moral of that story. Make sure you prepped your helpers before you get ready to do this. Let's do it again. I'll do it fast. Empty automation, fridge door open. Triggers is going to be the state of a fridge door sensor, binary sensor. And it's going to go from off to on. And then my condition is going to be a time value of a date time helper. I just wonder if I can just put in, see, it's not finding, I don't know why it's not finding that. Somebody help me. Use delay in action, 120 seconds would accomplish the same, I think. So it in use delay in action. So here's, okay, let me try fixed time. So after, is it this? That might be it right there. Every day of the week. No, that is the time of the day. So after 2 a.m. So it has to be a date time helper. Why does it not find my time? Did I not select the right thing? Okay, let me go back to my helpers and look at that again. It says that's type of timer. The type is a timer. Well, it took off the 0. I wonder why it took off the leading 0. Oops. Oh, in actions? Okay, let me check the actions then. Let me go back over here and let's forget about this condition. Let's delete the condition. Under actions, we will call service. This is where it gets really, this is where, why, you can already see, why is it doing that? Back to my fridge open. You can already see here that now what I need to do is I'm going to have to put a data string in there. Let's see if I can do that. So the domain, the action is notify. Let's see if it's notify. Do I have a notify? Let's call service notify. Oh, get out of my way. I'm reading here, so I have a mistake. You have a mistake in your trigger. You entered your to condition in the space for the from. Okay, so I skipped over thing. Oh, from off to on. For wait 120 seconds. Are y'all telling me to put the wait here? So it has to be here for 120 seconds. So under triggers, use a delay in action. So y'all are saying action, but I think if I wait for 120 seconds here, it will send it out after 100. So how long, what is this? 0000200? And then my action is going to be the next issue, notify. And I could say everywhere. And then the message, oh, this is cool. So it's not going to be as hard as I thought. Fridge door open. I'm going to say something different here, because if I fire this off, they're going to try to go shut the door and it won't be open. Testing for live stream. That'll be fun in the house. Optional title for your notification, and then extended data. So this is where under node red, I have this data. Message, data type, target. I don't actually have the target set anymore because I'm calling specifically one device. I think that was legacy and I don't need the targets anymore, but I didn't ever change it. So I'm calling one device and I'm calling them separately. I should just do everywhere. So wait 120, first under actions, wait 120, then call the action in sequence. You can call multiple actions in sequence. Okay. So this here, under actions, wait, where's the wait part of it? Oh, wait 120 first. I see what you're saying. Can I move the order these things? Yes, I can. Look at that. Boom. So wait. Wait template. And you're saying wait 120 and then call the action sequence. So I would say wait 120. Is that what we say here? And then continue on timeout probably, right? Once it hits the timeout, then we want to go. And then the next sequence would be this. And I wonder if I can do this on my guest bedroom up here without messing with the whole house. No. TTS, text to speech. I can, okay. Let's try that. And then my entity is going to be guest. I'm just going to play this up here where I'm at so that I don't kill the house. All right, and then test message. Use delay. Yeah, so here, that's what I'm wondering, right? So we have two things here. We have it has to be on for 2 minutes, or under our actions, we wait 120 seconds. What I don't want to do is send this on, wait 120 seconds, and then announce. I only want it to happen if it has been in this state for 2 minutes. I think this is probably the way to go, because if I do this, it will store the request. It'll go to on if I don't have a wait up here or a delay up here, and then it will go here and execute after 2 minutes, regardless of whether this hit the 2 minutes or not. So let me just take this off. Yeah. I mean, is that making sense to y'all? So this is my mind, right? It goes from off to on for 2 minutes. I'm assuming that if it's not there for 2 minutes, it won't fire, right? The automation stops. If the automation starts over again and it reaches 2 minutes, it will send the notice out. No conditions. The action would be calling the TTS Cloud Say service, and then just announce this message. So I'm going to make this actually, I don't know how to test this, right? But let me just save it. So under this automation, oops, how do I get to that? I'm going to just run the action to see if it announces. That's the first thing.
Test message.
Yes, you probably can't hear that, but my smart speaker over there just said test message. So that tells me that at least my actions are working. It doesn't tell me about the trigger. But I'm pretty confident. Use delay, then remove the wait. So the delay, I'm assuming you mean, is the first part. So what we've accomplished, and I'm assuming this because I need someone to actually open the door. What I need to do is come up with something else. Let's try something else first. Let's go with this. Just this is something I can play with without opening the door. Let's turn on the playroom light for 2 minutes. The playroom light will be on, and they'll do it for like 30 seconds or something. Playroom light. Is from off to on, and let's just do 0, 0, 0, 0, 10 seconds, just for the heck of it. And we'll see if this works. And let's make sure the light is off. Dashboard. Okay, the light is off. So go back over here. So going through my thought process, if the playroom light turns on for 10 seconds, it's going to call a service called my Cloud Say service. It's going to say, it's going to say playroom light on to this speaker, which is sitting right next to me here. Hold on a second. I'm going to say something to that machine. Okay, I muted that so I wouldn't trigger all y'all's speakers. So I've set the volume up so maybe you can hear it. So that's my thought process. Let's see if that works out. Now I go over here to turn the playroom light on, and we'll count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Playroom light on.
Bingo. All right, so after 10 seconds, the playroom light notification came across my smart speaker. So now I'm going to turn it off, and I want to try one more test. I want to take this thing, edit it. Where's it at? Playroom light on. Oh, it's not playroom light on. It's fridge door open. Playroom light on, just so I don't get confused. I'm going to turn it on, and I'm going to turn it back off before 10 seconds have elapsed to make sure it doesn't fire automatically. By the way, this stuff that I'm doing here, I mentioned this earlier in the stream, this is the process that anybody can use to try this out and see, okay, I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen when something occurs. You can go read the documentation, and most of the time you'll see a lot of it. Uh-oh, burnt screen. What am I burning? Oh, you know what else I didn't do? I didn't turn on my green screen light, backlighting, which probably doesn't help anything. Burnt screen. Okay, let me come back to that. So what I want to do now is I want to make sure that it doesn't come on after 10 seconds. So did I save it? I guess it's automatically saved. Oh, yeah. So let me go back to automations, just refresh it for the fun of it. And it last fired at 11:35. And now if I turn on this light, and I turn the light back off again before 10 seconds has elapsed, I should not get a notification that that came on. So we'll give that a second. A burnt in screen image. I like to be persistent, but I don't want to burn your monitor out. It looks okay on the OBS stuff, so I hope it's not just screwed up somewhere. Okay, so I turned the light on and I turned the light back off again. So what that tells me is in my limited testing, and again, I'm trying to reiterate this point, that what I'm doing on here is kind of going through the process of how you would build out an automation or test something that you're not completely sure about how it's going to operate. You can do these kind of tests and go through this iterative process. You know, you can read the documentation and do that. Build it by the way the documentation says, but you still need to make sure you test it a little bit. So we're just kind of playing around with that. So going back to the automation, just going to recap this one automation. The name, obviously, it's enabled right now, obviously, and then the state is going to be triggered off that playroom light switch. So if the playroom light switch is off and then goes to on for 10 seconds, it's going to tell me on the smart speaker down here under actions that it's turned on through speaking. Now you can also do something interesting. This would really mess with the kids. You could, this is for kind of a motion sensor. You could flip this all around and make this state be a motion sensor. If the motion sensor trips, and let's just do that. I think I'm just going to do that anyway. We're going to create one more for motion. What did I change? Must have changed something. We're going to create one more for just out of nowhere. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to try to use a blueprint on this one, because I talked about that in here. Let me move this out of the way. Poke and hope. That is a that's it. Poke and hope. Yeah, I think that's interesting. You've got ghosting or whatever about it. Camera is out of focus. No way. That looks pretty good. I wonder if is it a stream issue? Let me just look real quick and see what my stream things say. It says excellent connection. That looks okay. Let me look for a blueprint. This blueprint actually was built into Home Assistant, but I'm going to try to find another one. So we're going to go to the blueprint section, or not. Let's go to Home Assistant blueprints, because under my Home Assistant, the new stuff they did, version 2021.3, where they launched my Home Assistant, there's some changes to the way you can pull stuff in. I'm kind of watching the comments on my. All right, so some people are seeing it good. It could be a failure in the internet. Have you all seen this site? What's it called? Internet Health Report. Internet Health Report, I think. This is kind of cool. Wait, that's not the right health report. It's a screen. The Internet Traffic Report. Have you ever seen this? Everything looks green. So you can kind of see if there's traffic issues in certain parts of the country or whatever. I think if you click on in an area, you can see specifically what providers. I think these are all peering providers that talk to each other. Some of them are down. Anyway, that's way off topic. So down detector is also great if you want to know if something's down. So blueprints. Did I actually close out the screen I was on? Oops. Let me go to Home Assistant Blueprints. And we're going to do about another 20 minutes just because we're going to take kids out and do a little baseball today. So I want to get that settled. Camera is upside. What is going on? Camera's upside down. So I am not seeing any of that jazz on my side here. Is it really messed up, or is there just something going on in the world? Did I get hacked? Probably. Blueprints. Blueprints. Focus. So here are the blueprints in Home Assistant stuff. And so I want to look for motion detection. We're just going to... Can I search? Where's my search button? Motion detection. So you can go here. If you're new to blueprints, again, watch my video. If you're new to blueprints, blueprints are a way for people to take their existing automations and things and share them out in sort of what I would consider a template that can be pulled into your local Home Assistant setup. And then you can add your entities and devices that are part of that automation. Rather than building the automation, all you're doing is picking which devices and things that are acted on. So here is turn a light on and off based on motion detection. That's fairly standard. Hello from the Middle East. I don't know how many Middle Eastern viewers I've had lately, but I'm going to say it wrong. I apologize. Subash from the Middle East. Welcome. We are talking about right now we're talking about blueprints. The whole stream is basically about automation, and I'm taking some of my Node-RED automations and seeing how I can configure those in Home Assistant. And now I'm going to take a little blueprint section and talk about turning lights on and off. And this is interesting because under this new My Home Assistant, all of these blueprints and also integrations can be brought in if you click on it. Now this is going to take me to the wrong place. I can tell you that right now. I should have known. Camera is just fine. All right, that's good to know. Nothing like having a upside down camera on your live stream. Now, if I had the other camera here where I was showing the top down of the desk, it probably would have been something upside down. Now, if I click on my import blueprint here, and I'll do that, it's going to ask me to go to my development setup, which I don't want to do. But I will, and you can see what it does. You can import this thing, and I'm going to copy this link so I can bring it over to the other one. You can preview the blueprint, and then you can import the blueprint. So here's the blueprint content. You can look at the whole thing here and make sure this is what you want to import, and then you can click on import. And then it brings it into your stuff. Because now if you don't have the My Home Assistant thing running, then you can also import it by the URL directly. So if I go back over here and I use a blueprint, first I need to go over to blueprints and import a blueprint. So I'm going to click it here, of course, and then import it. And you have to put in the URL, which I just got. The URL for blueprints are these things here, where I just was. You can either click it here, which is recommended. It'll bring it into your Home Assistant because I have two. That's the issue I'm doing. I have a Raspberry Pi 4 and then I have an Odroid. My Odroid is my production, which we're doing all our demos on today. My development is where I have my import stuff tied to. So if I click on import integration or import blueprint, it's going to go to my test stuff. So that's why I have to do it this way. You can do it either way. So you put the URL in here, and the URL obviously is this part up here on the top. Can you see that? Yeah, you can. And then you stick the URL here, preview it, look at what's in here. Oh, I didn't look at it. You saw me do that on the other one. So now what I can do is, it's got the blueprint in here. I can create an automation based on the blueprint. And we can either go to automations, add, select the blueprint, which is the motion control lighting, or we can go to blueprints and we can create an automation directly from that. So you can change the name. You can change a lot of these things if you want to. All these things here are blueprints, are templatable in the blueprint. So they've already created all the code for us. All we have to do is select the entities that we're going to deal with. So if I say upstairs motion, which I believe is this one, which light do I want to turn on? Now what's interesting here is this is not the correct light. And I don't have an option for, oh, you know why? Here's where you're going to run into issues with this kind of blueprint stuff. If you have a blueprint and what this says is turn light on based on detected motion, the domain is light. So what I have to actually do, because I don't have any lights, I have switches that turn lights on and off. I'm going to actually have to modify this blueprint. So I'm going to go back over to the blueprint and I'm going to see if I can modify this somehow. How do you modify blueprints? So this is a case in point in which you look at some of this stuff. Instead of turning on a switch, it's trying to turn on a light. I don't have any lights. So you can go into your configuration. I'll demonstrate with File Editor. Let me get this out of the way, make sure I don't have anything bad on here first. And I'm going to go to, okay. So I'm in sensors. No secret squirrel stuff there, and bring it back. Make it fit on the screen where it belongs. Is it in the right spot? Ugh. Well, that was bad. Okay, so what I need to do is find the automations file. Or actually, I need to find the blueprints directory. So under File Editor, this is where this stuff goes to. You can open the blueprints folder, and you can find that person. And I'm too high here. Hold on. There you go. This was made by turn light on off based on detected motion. What I don't have is the name of the author. Usually the author's, oh, it's this one. So this is the author's name. It's stored in a file under the author's name. So this is this person. Turn light on and off based on detected motion. And I want to edit the file. I'm going to see if I can do this. So it says light, but I'm going to change it to switch. Change it to switch. And this might be getting a little complicated for some of y'all on the call, but it's an interesting thing that came up that I'm able to demonstrate for y'all. And then the domain, instead of being light, is switch. I hope it comes up as switch. It may come up as Z-Wave. I'm not sure. Hey, hello from Quebec, Joey. So how do you say it? Quebecians? Canadians? Yeah, so this is a good point. This is what we're talking about. Blueprints are sometimes more hassle than starting from fresh. If you want to import a blueprint and play around with it, that's fine. But for a simple motion thing that I'm talking about, if I had light entities, it would have been just fine, easy peasy. But I don't, I only have switches. So anyway, I'm demonstrating it here. I'm just going to see if this works. And I'm not going to change anything else. And now here, let me just, oh yeah, see, I've got to change the service call. So instead of light, it has to be switch, turn, and then the mode, on or off. And the name of it is light. Did I change it? I named it. See, I just totally messed this up because down here in this section, because I called it switch up top, I got to change it switch down here so that it sees the name of the switch from the actual input stuff. Yeah, this is a pain. This may or may not work at all, but we're gonna try it. So now I've edited the files. Let me come back over here and let me just start over, refresh the screen, create an automation. See, it didn't change any of this. It probably have to restart something. I'm gonna say motion sensor upstairs, motion, switch. Yeah. See, and I'd have to do more than that. So that just means that using a blueprint for something simple like that is probably not worth your while. In fact, I'm going to remove the blueprint because I don't need it hanging out in there. And I'm going to show you doing motion sensing just with simple automation. And I'm not knocking blueprints. They're very handy for things that are repetitive, that are complicated, that you just want to just add in there. Don't go away thinking that I'm saying blueprints are terrible. If you're doing simple actions, it's maybe not worth the time to go to a blueprint. Again, if you have light entities, that motion sensor thing would have worked perfectly. I don't have any lights, I have switches. And there's probably a blueprint for switches, but I'm not going to take the time to find it because I'm going to add an automation with an empty automation, turn on light with motion. And this is the reason why blueprints exist. I'm going to turn on one light switch, one switch with one motion sensor. Well, let's say I want to do that in 50 places in my house, different lights and different things. A blueprint would allow me to create the automations multiple times, just choosing the entity rather than going through this whole process. So you can actually create your own templates from this stuff as well. So I'm going to turn on light, turn on switch. Let's just call it what it is. Turn on switch. The device type is going to be state. Where is it? State. Entity is motion upstairs. Let's find upstairs motion. Upstairs binary sensor. Since the binary sensor is either on or off. From on, off to on. We don't care. It's immediate. It should be immediate. And then my action is going to be turning on the light. So I'm going to call service. In this case, switch turn on. And I want to turn on the playroom light, which is this one. See, now this switch playroom light JS didn't show up in the blueprint because this is under, I'll just show you again. It's under the switch domain. It's not under the light domain. I don't have anything under a light domain. See, I don't have anything under lights. Or under the domain light, the part before the decimal or the period. So now this is basically all I need to do. Whenever this motion trips, it will immediately turn the light on. And then this is the part where I think the delay would be something that would be different. So I can wait for, let's say, 2 minutes. Continue on timeout, add another action, and this time, same thing, call service. Device is going to be, call service, switch turn off this time. Switch turn off, and the entity, again, is going to be the playroom light. So what I've created now is I've created a thing where if there's motion, it will call the service, turn it on. It will wait. That should be 2 minutes. It'll wait 2 minutes, which is really short. I mean, I wouldn't do this normally. It'd be longer. And then after 2 minutes, continue on after timeout to this turning it off. Yeah, 20 minutes, guys. Sorry. Line 35 also. Yeah, so there's so many changes, Zappy. I abandoned, and the delay between me making changes in the live stream and y'all chatting is like 30 seconds, so I missed some of this. But yeah, it's fixed to 2 minutes. But I would say, I mean, for me, 20 minutes would probably be more realistic. If I want light to be on in a room and someone goes in there, in the use cases that I have, it would probably be more like 20 minutes instead of 2 minutes. So what you can see here basically, and let's go into Node-RED. I basically did a node. Really? I think it's because I'm resizing the screen. It doesn't like that. So light actions or motion actions. So this is essentially what I just did. In the study, if the study motion sensor turns on, it checks the status of the light for some reason. I forget why I do that. But it turns the light on after 1 hour between sunrise and sunset. And you can add a condition, I think. This is the part would be interesting to find out. But anyway, it starts a 1 hour timer. After 1 hour, it turns the light off again. So if you remove this part, what I just created was this. Study motion turns on, study light turns on, 1 hour timer starts, and the study motion, the thing turns off. And you can see motion just occurred there. Now, one of the things that this does is this continues to start the timer on motion. So this timer, as long as there's motion in there, this 1 hour timer resets. I don't know if that's true for this automation. Does it see that the switch went from off to on? Where's it at? I lost my thing here. Go up. It sees it from off to on. Does it always, and the motion sensors obviously will go on and then they'll go back off again. Does this restart every single time? And one way I can tell it, I guess, is let's change this to study motion or study sensor. This is one of those. Yeah, this one. This is one of those AOTech multi-sensor 6, so it has a lot of stuff on it. I'm going to save it, and here's what I want to do. It's funny if the study has motion, the lights upstairs are going to turn on. That's funny. So now I'm going to watch it, right? This is, I don't even know what I called it. Is it this one? That was dumb. Yeah, it is this one. So it's never triggered. So if someone moves around in the study and that thing resets, is it going to reset every time? And we'll watch it for just a second. Should be restart for motion detection. Let me look at that comment again. Mode should be restart for a motion detection automation. Okay, let's look at that. So let me go back in here, edit it. All right, so tell me that again, Sid. So you're saying mode should be restart for a motion detection automation. What's the mode? Where are we looking at the mode at? Oh, up here, mode from, I think you're talking about this. Not trigger type, right? You're talking about from this to this. Or are you talking about something else down the way here? Yeah, we'll see. Set mode, restart near the top panel of the automation, the default. Oh, I see. Okay. So single. So instead of, where's my, I know what you're talking about. Where's it at? Here we go. Restart. All right. So this is a restart thing. So you can check automation documentation for restart. Start a new run after first stopping the previous run. Okay, so if this all fires along, you want it to restart when it's done. So then it would, right? Off to on. And then, but here's the thing, Sid, does it restart and never get to this 2-minute timeout to turn it off again? That's a question, because I don't want to restart it once it runs. Does it have to go through this entire thing first before it restarts? Or does it restart once the conditions up here change? I know you say correct, but I think I asked 3 questions. 3 questions in the same amount of time. So which one is it? Is it, I'll let you type the answer in text, because otherwise if I ask 3 questions, you're going to say yes to I won't know which one you're saying yes to. Anyway, so we're going to wrap this up pretty quick. I want to see what Sid's answer is before I do it, but I'm going to leave this here for now. What I've demonstrated basically is I can take some of my Node-RED automations here and I can bring them directly into Home Assistant using the UI, and I'm able to do stuff. And I guarantee you that there are those of you that are watching this are just like face palming, like why does this seem so difficult? I have never done any serious automations through the UI because I've used Node-RED for all of my automation work. And I talked about that earlier in the stream where the UI and stuff wasn't where it is today. That wasn't hard. It was harder. I mean, you can look at stuff like this automation in the YAML. Except you can't because apparently I broke something. Whoa. Leave. Let me go back because I broke something. So Sid says a 2-minute causes the restart to start over before it turns the light off. So you almost have to leave that running. So in the case of turning the light off after a certain amount of time or keeping it re-triggering, is my automation going to work that way, or is it just going to wait till the 2 minutes is up and turn it off, and then if it triggers again, it starts over? Because what I don't want to do is have the light turn off while somebody's in the room and it's moving around and continuing to trigger. So I wonder if that's going to work, or we actually have to do something different in the automation. And if that's the case, that's where Node-RED kind of... Yeah, the light came on because I guess somebody moved in the automation. Let's see if it fired. So it just fired right now. What I need to do, yeah, that's a question for you, Sid. Like, that's where Node-RED maybe shines, is I can create a loop or whatever. And it's the same thing on the fridge door, which we talked about, this 2-minute timer thing. When do we never talked about stopping the 2-minute timer. When does that 2-minute timer stop? I guess once the door closes, that automation ceases to run because I have that delay in there. So that's a question, right? And I'm sure it can be done. What I'm trying to do here too is I wanted to look at this in YAML, but it said it couldn't do it. Oh, here we go. So trigger platform state is the motion detection off to on. It'll turn this on. The wait template is a 2-minute timeout. Continue on timeout to true, which will turn the light back off again. Mode is single, and this is where we're talking about changing that to restart. So how do you get this part at the bottom to play if you're running a restart? And let me read your chat one more time. Maybe I read it wrong. So it says restart causes the 2-minute to start over before it turns the light off. The restart mode prevents it from turning the light off if motion... Okay, so restart... Okay, I get what you're saying. So restart is exactly what we're trying to do. On restart, it will keep that going. And this part up here will continue to loop as long as it goes. And I guess it would turn the light back on every time, right? Or it just keeps going. Yeah, I need to experiment because here's what I think. This is what I think in my mind, right? It would turn it on, and then it would, if it was off, it would go to on, and it would turn the switch on and start this wait timer. If this then becomes on again, it would try to turn the switch on. It would already be on. I mean, I could add a condition. If the switch is already on, don't do anything, right? I don't care. If I try to turn it on multiple times, it doesn't do anything other than maybe just make my Z-Wave network noisy. And then once I do that, if there's no activity here, this just continues to count this timer. So here's what I think is what you're telling me, Sid, is this timer doesn't do anything. If it starts, it just starts over, hits the 2-minute timer, just keeps going in this top loop until this timer expires, turns the light off, and then restart just keeps turning the light. Restart will continue to turn the first action on over and over again until there's no more motion, right? I guess that's what we're saying. As I've said before, again, there's multiple ways to do stuff, and this is just one of the ways. But I think I've demonstrated successfully that it's easy enough to take some of your Node-RED automations, if you're using those, and pull them into, or for me, pull them into Home Assistant native using the UI, and you can build that stuff out. If you're visual and you like looking at Node-RED, which I kind of do, you can do this as well. But again, the automations will work just fine for that. So if you're not running Node-RED, you can do some of the more fancy automations just using the UI and stuff here. All right, with that being said, yes, again. I guess you mean yes. It will just run and keep turning the switch on. It does all those things, right? The off, if the on and off were together, it would just turn it on and off and restart. It would turn it on, start the timer, and then the mode is restart, and it would go back to the top and do restart again. If it goes to on again, it turns the light on, starts the timer, turns the light on, starts the timer. It just keeps going. That's what I'm assuming. Node-RED's better because it has pictures. I do like the visual aspect of it. That is one of the, and I mentioned that early on, that is one of the things that I like the most about it. It's hard to see all this stuff, but like lights, I can see all of my light actions. And for lights, by the way, and this is something you can most likely do in automations. When it's holiday lighting time, I drag a connector from here to start my holiday lighting, and I don't have to redo this every year. I just drag the connector over it, and I just remove a couple of these so they don't turn on. You could do the same thing by turning things on and off, I assume, as well. So anyway, that's what I like about Node-RED, is you can do things like that, visually just see what's happening. I mean, this one's pretty complicated. I got lines going everywhere, doing all kinds of stuff. So I do like Node-RED for automations, but you can certainly see the ability to run stuff directly in the UI as well. So that works just as well. Let me turn all these things off. Here's an interesting one. I'll just show you real quick before we go. This is scene stuff, and I ordered a device which has now arrived. It allowed me to show the scene stuff, but you can double tap the top part of my Zeus light switch in the wall, and it will turn on all of these lights in the house. So if I come in the front door and I double tap the top of the light, all my inside lights come on. So that's kind of a cool thing you can do with automations as well. And this one specifically is a Z-Wave JS event. It's looking at the Z-Wave JS event bus, and if it sees these three values on the event bus, it will then come down here and call the action. So you can do scenes and stuff with that. If you have the little mini mote switches or whatever things that you can do with scenes, different buttons on there, you can capture those things in here as well under Z-Wave events, and then do actions on those as well. What was the comment here? YAML something. I usually use Node-RED for these type of automations, but YAML is a very reliable way to do motion detection automations. Yep, absolutely. Again, as I said early on, there's 4 or 5 or 10 or 20 different ways to do the same thing. So your mileage may vary. Your choice of how you do something may vary or will vary. Whatever you like playing with. I mean, that's the beauty of this, is you can play with whatever you want. You can do it. So, I did the ESP32 video just the other day on programming those ESP32 boards using ESP Home. And somebody asked me a question about whether would you just use the Zigbee thermostat or thermometer versus using like an ESP32 board with a Xiaomi thing. And that's personal preference. You can take one ESP32 board. You can do things like room presence with it. You can listen to other devices. You can do a lot of stuff with the ESP boards. And so if you have one ESP board in a room, you can do all kinds of stuff with it. So the value of learning to program the board is helpful in a lot of different ways, but it's just one way to do something. I'm using the Xiaomi little $4 thermometer things, the low energy Bluetooth stuff stuck in the refrigerator. And I don't have a Zigbee dongle, so that's just the way I went with it. So again, multiple ways to do the same thing. All right. If there's time, can you show your HA restart quickly? The automation? Sure. I don't know what it does. I forgot, but I can show it for sure. HA restart. I don't know what I'm doing here with this. Oh, yeah. You know why I'm doing this? So if I restart on here, I use the notify pushover service, and I just say has restarted, and then I just put warning, and it'll come to my devices that are subscribed to my pushover service, which is a notification thing I use. Again, and I know I'm saying I promote my videos here because, why not? I have a pushover video. So if you're curious about what pushover does, then it's just a notification service that's been very, very, I've used it for years and it's been perfect. No issues with it at all. Yep, and so that's what I do with HA. And the reason I did that is my brother has an issue with his Odroid restarting occasionally, and he wanted to get notified of that so he could go reset his panels and stuff. So I came up with a little thing. Yeah, and Sid points out what I'm saying. It allows you to do stuff multiple ways. All right, I need to run because I need to go do some family stuff. I am appreciative of my family allowing me some time to do this and be able to talk with y'all and learn together and show you things and hopefully help you do things in Home Assistant. And with that, I will leave it at that. And if you're not a subscriber and you're new here, do me a favor and just hit that subscribe button. It might even be on the screen for you over, down here by my shoulder. Hit that button, and then that way helps the channel grow and algorithms like it and, whatever else. I have a Discord server if you want to hit me up on the Discord server. I try to respond to those things timely, but not always. Again, family stuff, right? Other things, work, that kind of business. And then, of course, comments, suggestions for videos. I'm always welcoming those. My next video, by the way, is going to be the Xiaomi second part to the ESP32 stuff that I just did. I'm going to show you the actual Xiaomi programming and flashing of the firmware, and then a little, 30-second view of where that thing sits inside my refrigerator and all that kind of nonsense. So subscribe, hit the alert bell and all that jazz, blah, blah, blah. And thank you for watching, and we will see you on the next video. Have a great rest of your weekend.